all of the rules of our society were created by men. All of the positions of power are held by men, for the most part. And every aspect of how our society functions was decided by men.
I would say that the patient.
What I don't understand is why we stop at just one characteristic of the people in power. All the rules were created by men, but they were also wealthy men. Why do we stop at just one characteristic? They were wealthy. They were elite. They always seem to stop at the one that's convenient to make their point. It wasn't poor men making these rules. You know, it wasn't the peasant making any sort of rules. He had no rights or power.
If we live in such a patriarchal society, where did all these laws come from that protect women and punish men?
That's a good one too. That's a really good one too. Honestly, I feel like it would probably have boiled down from either men that have like more of a
I mean, a lot of these laws, they were designed to protect women in an era where women probably weren't getting as much protection as they needed.
Do you think that patriarchy is the cause of gender roles, or is it the result of gender roles?
Gender roles are natural because of physiology and biology.
Right. Men were the hunters and women were the gatherers.
They're, for the most part, strongly correlated with physiology. Like, it's not to say that every woman or every man exhibits the same behavior, but generally speaking, gender groups tend to fall under specific behavioral patterns. As we've become more technologically sophisticated, we're starting to push back against it. But if we were to go back a couple thousand years ago, these gender roles would have manifested or emerged, and people would have been far more reluctant to push back against them.
Isn't patriarchy just a natural evolution of men and women just giving into their expected roles?
No, because not every woman is reproducing. Not every woman wants to be a woman. Not every woman wants.
I don't think he's saying every woman. He's saying just in general, there tends to, like, in general, gender roles seem to emerge naturally. In general. He's not saying for every woman or every man. It's just saying, in general, when you put men and women together without any influence, they tend to organize themselves in very specific ways.
Wants to have kids. So if you're putting women in this position where it's only put to reproduce, then you're silencing every other voice that we have. We're not only here.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with, you know, pushing back on some gender roles. I do think that society benefits more when women are given freedom to explore whatever they want to explore. People should just be free to pursue what they want.
You know, I'd argue that women were involved in some critical inventions. Radiation.
Can you name 5 famous female inventors? I'll give you one, Madame Curie.
That's the one I was thinking of. That's cheating. 5 famous female inventors. You know, I think it is a bit of a numbers game. There aren't as many famous female.
I think that's not necessarily a fair question, because women weren't necessarily given as much opportunity to participate in inventions in those early eras. So that's not the fairest question.
Where did the expression ladies first come from?
That's a good question. I would say, honestly, I don't know.
The women were the softer and fairer sex. So they treated women softer and fairer. Their place wasn't, they didn't need to be doing anything professionally, because they were too soft for that. They were needed to be cared for. So that was where the current idea of like chivalry, of, you know, opening the doors, which I actually do support, because it shows respect for women.
But then that's not equal treatment. You're picking and choosing which things you agree with.
Why do so many women want to tear down the patriarchy and replace it with a matriarchy?
Well, there are examples of matriarchal societies. The Sisseton, which is my ancestry, on my mother's side, indigenous people were matriarchal. They're matrilineal, actually, which meant the woman, the female all inheritances came through the female side, and when you were born into the clan of your mother. Many indigenous societies, the Cherokee, Haudenosaunee, many indigenous societies were both matriarchal and matrilineal, but it's not that men had no place. There were men leaders, but a matriarchal society isn't necessarily about women controlling everything. That's not to say that men should live just to serve women, although there is, I think, an argument to be made that that is the case, since women are the ones who produce children. And if children are the future, I think there's a good case to be made that the point of society should be ultimately to serve the interests of women.
What? That's insane. So he's clearly biased. He clearly picked his side. Clearly has some weird disdain for men. I don't know where that's founded on, but this doesn't even make any sense. Both men and women are important in the child's life. So we should be serving the interests of both parties. Not just what, like, that doesn't even make sense.
Patriarchal societies are fundamentally less capable of functioning than matriarchal societies.
And that's why so-called patriarchal societies are the superpowers of the world.
If you look at matriarchal societies, they're more harmonious. One thing that women are better at is cooperation. Women.
That's not even true. Not to mention, research has also shown that there have been more wars under female leaders. So here's a finding from the National Bureau of Economic Research. So they asked themselves the question, are states led by women less prone to conflict than states led by men? We find that polities led by queens were more likely to engage in war than polities led by kings. Moreover, the tendency of queens to engage as aggressors varied by marital status. Here's an article referencing that research. In fact, between 1480 and 1913, Europe's queens were 27% more likely than its kings to wage war.
When men were in charge, didn't they still make laws to protect women?
Of course.
If we lived in a matriarchy where women had all the power, would women make laws to protect men?
Not at all.
Why not?
Because it wouldn't be in their best interest to stay in control.
I feel like no, honestly, because I feel like it's their mindset. I just feel like it's very not closed-minded, but a little bit corrupted, because I feel like they'll look at it more of as a oh, well, they didn't protect us whenever it was their time, so why should we protect them, when it's really not that, because we were protected. It was, again.
Seems like she's saying there's a vindictiveness that might arise.
But just an example of patriarchy and the built-in system. In the original planning of the government of the United States, the only people who were allowed to vote were men.
But you...
Wealthy, elite men. Stop leaving out the characteristics that don't suit your argument. Not just men. That's not... Not all men get access to power, privilege. Like, stop being intellectually dishonest.
You also had to be drafted and be a landowner to be able to vote as well. Women got the right to vote without being drafted.
No, that's not true. First of all...
So this is from the Selective Service System.gov. Why aren't women required to register? The law. The Selective Service Law, as it's written, now refers specifically to male persons. Male persons. In stating who must register and who would be drafted. It's right there. For women to be required to register with Selective Service, Congress would have to amend the law. There we have it. That's the video, guys. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and share. And if you have any suggestions on videos I should react to, send them my way.